Come on. Okay, we're live. Testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn that family ties jump the shark. 3, 2, hey everybody, it's Paul Packler. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. Once again, our resident Meredith Baxter could not be with us. However, my favorite of the triumvirate is here, and his name is Corey Pepper. Hi, Corey.
Hi, Paul. Wow. It really, I think when we actually calculate this at the end of the season, I think Meredith Baxter Burney giving birth to a child, she showed up to work more than Scott Jones did.
Oh, God, absolutely. Like, luckily for her, she was getting paid. We're docking all of his pay for the hours that he misses.
Oh, dear God. But, his wife is pregnant. God bless them both. Let them have a lovely family.
Oh, sure. They're great. They're going to be totally fine. I'm sure he's more than happy to be home and not watching this pile of dog shit episode.
Oh, dear God. The only thing I could think of is this episode proves once again that anything that's got a part 2 that doesn't have Godfather before part 2 is a loser. There's nothing that says part 2 that's good.
Yeah, I mean, other than Godfather 2 and Empire Strikes Back, which, I mean, arguable for you because you hate Star Wars.
But enjoyed the Force Awakens.
Oh, okay, all right.
Isn't that crazy? I was dragged to it, and I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was a good movie.
It's a fun movie. It's really fun.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was fun. I thought it was very entertaining.
So, this episode, let's start it off. It's Birth of a Keaton, Part 2, the artistic culmination of 3 seasons of Keaton sex, ending up with Anne Keaton.
It's funny. They had the requisite previously on Family Ties, and all I could write down was, we just reviewed this episode last week. I think I could wrap it up for them in a sentence. Nothing happened.
That was the funniest part, Corey, is that in the when Meredith Baxter's like, last time on Family Ties, all the clips that they show are literally the last 5 minutes of the previous episode because nothing else in the episode mattered.
And just to hammer that home, we still get, we were debating last week whether we were going to get Bud in this episode. We all bet yes, if I remember correctly. And we get more than enough of our fair share of Bud.
Oh, man, this could have been Bud's, launch into a whole new series. He's in this show so much this episode.
I thought I was going to go crazy. It's like, who fell in love with Ron Karabatsos so much that we're creating an iconic 2-part episode that hinges upon the performance of plumber Bud?
I mean, we get his backstory, we get to see his truck, we get to get his philosophies on life. It's insane.
It's truly crazy. I mean, I just kept on thinking, they got to wind this storyline up. No, it's a whole 2 episodes of Bud, played by Ron. But boy, we actually open on this episode with them in the living room as we left them, with their mouths hanging open, watching Elise go into labor during the pledge drive on the public TV station. Bud is eating popcorn. But the one thing I didn't notice at the end of the last episode, it's snowing incredibly heavy at the beginning of this episode. There's been a weather change.
Yeah, there's been a weather change in as much as if you look at the back window on the upstage wall, it's flying sideways and in spurts. Like the snow machine just keeps going, wow, wow. Wow.
I wrote down a few times, the snow during this whole episode was completely screwed up. The snow machine, the quality of the snow, the fact that I always find TV and movie snow weird because it's never wet, which snow is. There's a basis of water in snow that we never get when they have snow, and so it's falling on people like dandruff, and people, it's like a light non-sticking snow, but it looks like it's a freaking blizzard outside.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, usually they use like a plastic type stuff for fake stage snow, right? Where it's like a sort of like a shredded plastic bag type
Exactly.
consistency.
This was but
so yeah, so what blew
was
my mind in this first. Oh, sorry, I was talking over you. Go ahead, Corey.
I was just saying the sideways snow kept making me laugh, though.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the funnier parts of the episode. What blew my mind, what blew my mind in the first couple minutes was that when we finished the last episode, Steven is yelling at the TV. He's like, honey, I'm going to be there. We're leaving. I'm going to go grab your bag. And then this first scene starts with it just being like he and Bud just had sex and they're both like relaxed. And it's just like, why don't you want to have things moving?
There was a sense of urgency at the last episode that somehow or another the writers and the directors totally forgot about at the beginning of this episode. So it's a very languid kind of scene with them eating popcorn and staring at TV, and it's snowing. And we never, ever deal with the plumbing issue.
That's true. I totally forgot because in the last, when Steven came home for the plumbing issue, the ceiling was caving in.
That's right. And if I was about to have a baby and didn't have running water in my home, I would think that would be the most important thing after the birth of the baby. I would think making sure that there was running water. But they're using Bud, played by Ron. They keep on using Bud as if he was, I keep on thinking they wanted Danny DeVito. They wanted like a big star to play this role. And instead they got this Greek actor, Ron Karabatsos, and he is beyond dreadful.
He's so boring. He's so boring.
You get nothing from him. There's just nothing happening there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
He has like a working class accent.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Keaton. It'll be ready soon. He seemed like a cartoon character, like, all right, okay, I'll help you with the plumbing. He was just really dull. It's just a terrible character, and we get so much of him.
Yeah, and with the cartoonishness, who else could you need in a plot or B plot? However you want to break this down, probably the A plot. When you have a cartoony character, you need to bring Skippy aboard.
It's the only partner you got for a cartoon character. So Skippy comes in. My first thought is, why is Skippy so excited about the baby being born? He's a neighbor. I mean, God, things happen around me to my neighbors all the time. I don't give a rat's ass what's happening to my neighbors. Skippy seems incredibly involved, which leads into a really weird scene between Skippy and Bud watching Elise on TV eating popcorn. It was a weird scene.
Yeah, here's the crazy thing. This is just how bad the writing is in this episode. That Skippy comes over because he was excited about watching the basketball game. So when Steven says, I'm going to go out to my car, I'm leaving to go meet Elise at the hospital, Skippy and Bud, this is the scene you're talking about, sit down on the couch, and Skippy says, so should we watch Mrs. Keaton having a baby or the basketball game? And they're like, oh, let's flip back and forth. But what's crazy is she was just on TV saying she was going to the hospital, but the writers are letting us know that she never gets there.
It's well, I'll get into how stupid that is later, because there's another stupid thing that the writers do. But Steven comes after I wrote down, Bud continues to suck consistently, is what I wrote down. He's just awful. Steven's car is stuck in the snow, so he comes back in and asks the boys to give him a a push. And we have to get the button line of Skippy screaming shotgun after the door closes, just to give us a big laugh line out of that scene. Because a kid yelling shotgun always cracks me up.
Well, you know, Corey, I mean, not to talk out of school, but a woman claps that joke was so funny.
Was there a clap in the track that was so funny it was worth applause? Yeah. So
yes.
We end up cutting to the TV station where Alex, and here's where I have another problem with this episode, Alex is freaking out that his mother is about to give birth. So he's freaking out. Elise is in labor, and there's about 6 or 7 extras in the background who are walking around doing their jobs as if a pregnant woman didn't just go into labor on television right next to them in the studio. Then no one's reacting to it at all. I thought, well, everyone in Dayton who's watching the pledge drive should know that Elise Keaton is about to give birth. How do the 6 or 7 extras not know that Elise Keaton is about to give birth? If I was in a scene doing nothing, I would take care of the person who's going into labor. I would say, hey, do you need some help? Is there anything I can do to help you?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's crazy about everything in this episode. Nothing is taken seriously or reacted to honestly. It's all just the laziest, like, well, we're here, we're in front of a camera, we wrote this script, it doesn't really make sense. We just have to get to a picture of a baby in 22 minutes.
And the beginning of Alex freaking out, once again, is they go to this go-to reaction of stupidity. Here is a very, very bright young man in college. God, 3 episodes ago, he wanted to pretend he was a father. Now he's totally freaked out. By the way, there's 100 other people there. It's not his responsibility. No one said, Alex, you have to deliver mommy's baby, which I would understand. You know what? I don't want to go anywhere near my mother's cooch. So I understand that is not exactly what every child wants to do. I get that. However, hey, Gus, how about you have children? We met them last week. How about you come over and take care of my mother's cooch and catch the kid when he comes out?
Yeah, I mean, why aren't they calling? Why aren't they trying to call when they can't get out the doorway because we learned that they're snowed in? Why? They have all these phones. They're doing a phone bank. Call somebody.
Clearly you can make phone calls, but nope, they never do that. So Gus comes down, and Gus, who's Steven's assistant or his compatriot at the TV station, he comes down and he says, well, ever since you went into labor, Mrs. Keaton, our pledges have never been better. So clearly going into labor equals more money for WKS.
Yes.
But we need someone to cover right now because Elise couldn't finish her song. So who's going to cover for Elise? God, we can't get enough of him, can we? But Jackie Jackerman, once again, God bless him. Just God bless him. It never got any better with Jackie Jackerman either. It is what it is.
It never did. I really thought that they were just going to forget he existed for the second part of the episode. But they really, really didn't. They were like, we paid him for his 2 days of work. We're going to have to shoot him.
See, last week when we posed the question, do you think Bud is going to be in the episode? We all said yes. We didn't ask the question if you think Jackie Jackerman is going to be back, because I would have bet all 3 of us would have said no. There's no way Jackie Jackerman is back. But boy, they use him exactly the same way they used him last week.
I would say even less effectively. He's less funny than last time.
And apparently, and this is where I'm not really sure what was going on with their thought process. If I had a woman who went into labor while singing a song, and I was, say, Gus, because he seems to be the one who's in charge there right now, wouldn't you go over and say, hey, Elise, instead of sitting on the set waiting for your water to break and you giving birth, why don't we get you into one of our offices, a set that we've seen plenty of times this season? Why don't we get you into one of our offices where you can go into labor there and make you as comfortable as possible. But instead, they schlep her on that set. They have her sitting on the set. And Jackie Jackerman goes into singing the single worst song, a song that I think is so misogynistic. You're having my baby. What a lovely way to say that you're thinking of me. I don't understand that song, and I never have. That's the lyric.
Wait a second. I don't even remember him singing this. What was I doing? Was I drunk? What happened?
You don't remember him singing that awful Paul Anka song? You're having my baby. What a lovely way to say that you're thinking of me. He sings it.
Wow. I don't remember that at all, but I thank God that I don't remember it. I'm glad.
You see, I'm going to have to now stop thinking about that song, and I can't because it enrages me.
Oh, that's awful. No, wait, let me ask you this. Did you meet Dr. Witt?
We have not yet met Dr. Witt, have we?
Because it's in this scene when Alex is freaking out, and he says, we need a doctor. Is there a doctor?
Yes, Dr. Witt. I just wrote down They had the classic, the PhD doctor answers when someone screams, is there a doctor in the house? Yes, the botanist, Dr. Witt. By the way, Witt, that was the only Witt in the entire episode. Let me put it that way.
Yes. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, and that was the first time in watching this that I wrote WTF, that I was just like,
and
you know,
I would have bet money at that point that we would never see him again. And yet he comes back in the second act.
No.
The crap. So I wrote down right here, after the botanist scene, I wrote down, doesn't someone have an office they can take her to? Thankfully, they did later on, but for the time being, they had to have her sit on that set. And all I kept on writing down was different notes saying, is she actually going to have the baby on camera? Is no one going to move her away from the set, from the working hot set of a pledge drive? No, we'll just let her sit there, even though contractions were 15 minutes apart at this point.
That's what was shocking to me, is because we know that the other sets exist. They have tons of sets in this episode, so why keep her on TV?
I just didn't get it. It just made no sense to me.
Yeah.
Alex is continuing. He's screaming. He's literally having an anxiety attack during the scene. Like he's going to have to deliver the baby. And then we
and like you said, Corey, I want to revisit what you just said before. The fact that just a few episodes ago, he was insanely wanting to have a baby and to carry a baby to term. Like, this is the same character from 3 episodes ago.
Yep. And now all of a sudden, his mother giving birth to a baby, which, by the way, he took a Lamaze class. He should be all right with it. You know, if you take a Lamaze class, then, okay, maybe I can help out. I learned a few tricks. I can pick up a few things to help you with your breathing. I can rub a tennis ball on your belly if I need to, or your feet, whatever I need to. And we cut at the end of this scene to the hospital. And, of course, our 3 bumbling fools, Harpo, Chico, and Zeppo, all get there at the same time. And they question this. She's sort of cute, the doctor. She was sort of cute. They gave her nothing to do.
She was.
And at one point, they almost made her turn her back to the entire scene and upstage herself so that she would be in the scene. And yet later on in the episode, when she gives birth, they turn her back to it. So it's like she's not intrusive. But she's there, and they're questioning the doctor about a birth that she just participated in. And, of course, the big joke is Steven thinks it's his baby, but it's not his baby. It was a different baby because, as we all know, Elise ain't at the hospital. She's snowbound at the TV station.
Yeah, this episode, if I had to give it a subtitle, would just be called Killing Time. Like, I feel like they barely had an idea for a 2-part episode, and so every joke is so drawn out. Every scene is just repeating the same stuff in itself the whole time.
Totally agree with you. It is a hamster in a cage, this episode. It goes round and round. They play the same beat over and over again in scenes. As a matter of fact, I even wrote down in that prior scene when Jackie Jackerman was doing his monologue, they simply had a list of jokes. Like I feel like it was the jokes that the writers came up with. They pared it down to 4, and they kept the 4 jokes in. There was no let's move the story forward in any kind of a way. It's really just, let's put as many jokes in about the same thing as we possibly can. And if we have multiple punchlines, don't worry about that, writers. We'll put the multiple punchlines in the show. We'll just write them into the show. That way we don't have to come up with story. We got punchlines. We don't need story.
Totally. I was looking at, when I was watching the episode, and I looked at how much time was eaten up by the previously on and the opening credits. They lost almost 2 minutes with that. And even then, they were still killing time.
So we get in this hospital scene, somebody's doing who does a play-by-play of somebody giving birth? It's like somebody's doing is like narrating somebody giving birth. I just wrote that down. I don't remember it at all. It's like you and you're having my baby.
I think that was when Dr. Alexander was talking with Steven, where they were doing the Dorfman joke, where it was like, he was like, oh, the baby's this and that and this and that. And then she was like, punchline, it was someone else's baby.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately...
And I was actually...
Yeah?
No, I was just going to say, I was getting kind of frustrated because what happens is, so they're freaking out. They're like, we should go to the TV station. And he's like, well, what if Elise is on the road coming here and we miss her when we go there and this and that? And they're all saying this stuff. And I'm like my heart is racing because I'm just like, just invent cell phones. Just invent cell phones.
I have that written down in the second act where I did write down if they only had cell phones. That when he had to pull off the freeway to make a payphone call, and I realized, I remember having to do that. But if they only had cell phones, and yet they don't have cell phones, but they do have on-camera live television, which, as we're experiencing right now, if you can talk to someone on television live, it's like, wow, it's like a picture phone. So if Elise just went in front of the camera and she was on camera half the time, why don't you say to Steven, I'm going to stay here at the station, Steven. They've communicated 1,000 things this way. Why didn't they just communicate this point? Why? Because if they did, there wouldn't be a second act. That's why.
That's exactly right. And so that's what happens. She says, I'm at the station. I'm snowed in. Come get me. And and Gus is trying to, he sidles up next to Elise, and he's saying, you can't see this kind of thing on commercial TV. This woman's having a baby. And then they cut to commercial. And I just love the little meta irony there that this is commercial TV. And I don't know, I thought that was cute.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. So that's the commercial, and we'll be right back. And we're back.
So finally, they get Elise off the set. Thank God. And they shove her in the office that we've seen 100 times before that Gus and Steven share at WKS. Jennifer is assigned...
In fact, Corey, if I may, this is the same office where Steven almost cheated on Elise with Judith Light, where they kissed and made out and stuff.
In a halfway decent episode, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Jennifer is timing contractions on her, what they thought was hilarious, Duran Duran watch.
This is Corey. Honestly, this is a bunch of 40-year-old TV writers who don't understand what Duran Duran is, so they think it's like two guys both named Duran, and that's not what Duran Duran is.
It's a band. They kept on, because she kept on saying, there's the big Duran and the little Duran, and they thought it was like two guys named Duran, like Bob Duran and Steve Duran, and they formed a band named Duran Duran.
Oh, it made me laugh so much every time they said it.
And they said it a bunch of times. They wouldn't get off of this bad Jennifer joke. Gus brings a giant pitcher of ice water that Alex downs a glass of immediately from his anxiety attack that he's having. What was the line? Oh, this atmosphere is non-professional, not professional, not medical, and not for profit. That was what was killing Alex. That it was not for. They were at a not-for-profit television station. I thought that may have been the only solid joke in the whole show. Not professional, not medical, not for profit.
Yeah, I thought that was actually pretty good. And then
Yeah.
also the other was that Gus was saying that they are now at $70,000 pledged from the calls in and stuff because of Meredith's pregnancy and stuff. And so last episode they said they were at 10,000, and now they've jumped $60,000. The people of Columbus love watching women in labor.
Apparently, and they're giving substantial money for women in labor. But right after I wrote this down, then there's a moment clearly where Alex starts to freak out again. And so I wrote down, Alex is acting like an idiot. He's acting like a total idiot. I mean, really, if your mother was, and he comes off like such a narcissist when they turn him into an idiot. He becomes a total narcissist. Like, I don't care if it's your mother or a stranger, if you're sitting next to a woman who's gone into labor and isn't in a hospital, you should probably act calm and kind. Those are the two things that would occur to me. I can't deliver a baby, but I can be kind to somebody who's freaking out. And freaking out when someone else is freaking out is never the right answer. And Alex is a bright young man. He should know that. And yet he does, until Elise gives him the monologue that you have got to help me. I need your help. I'm depending upon you. You've got to help me. And from that moment, he turns on a dime and he turns into Dr. Kildare. Now I'm going to take care of this. I've got this all worked out. I've got the hot water and I've got the towels. And whatever they get, pregnant ladies, they always get hot water and towels. I don't know why. You don't need hot water and towels.
That's a Bill Cosby joke.
Is it? What's the punchline? And then I raped a woman?
No, he's like, yeah, yeah, pretty much. No. So it was something where it was in himself once again, where I learned everything about pregnancy and Lamaze. During the himself routine, he says, and when a woman is in labor, what you need, just as they say in every movie, is hot water. And so when Alex said hot water, I was like, that's what you need.
And yet I've been at 2 births of 2 children. I've never seen anybody getting hot water. I just don't. I mean, they go and bathe the child. They swab the child out because they come out all, covered with mucusy shit. So you clean the kid up before you give it to mommy and daddy. But if the kid's still filled with mucusy shit, it's not going to stop the parents from cuddling and kissing a child. It just seems so stupid. And then, of course, right after
it's so stupid.
After Alex turns into Dr. Kildare, Dr. Witt comes back into the scene again. And I have the whole reason. I wrote down the reason Dr. Witt comes back in the second act is they had 3 or 4 botany jokes that they couldn't jam into the first act. So they needed to bring him back in the second act so they could shoehorn these 4 botany jokes into the script.
You know what? It would have been so much better if the jokes were just terrible puns. Like if he were like, well, don't bark at me. And he's like, oh, you don't look good. You're all green. Or like that would have been amazing.
Myself here, Mrs. Keaton.
See, I would have loved that character.
You could have turned him into a guy who had some sense of humor about that he was a botanist and made jokes constantly about the botany. That would have been funny. But boy, It wasn't the way it was.
No, he's just a crazy person who doesn't understand that plants and people aren't the same thing.
Different. And you're a doctor, like a professor doctor, not like an MD doctor. That's what they were looking for. So could you move on to somewhere else, Dr. Witt?
And also, let's remember that Dr. Witt came from the phone bank. So when they were yelling, we need a doctor, he steps down from his phone and says, I'm a doctor. So who is this Dr. Witt who is so not busy that he can volunteer making phone calls?
During pledge week.
Yeah.
And then the phone call comes in from Stephen, to which I wrote down, where the hell is he calling from? Because the cell phone hasn't been invented yet. And then Elise does give us, thank God, that little piece of information, that he had to stop at a payphone. But Alex is still freaking out over this. This whole thing is so new to him. And we go from this scene to the most expensive set that they've ever come up with. That would be Bud's truck. And apparently, he drives a 16-wheeler. It looked like it was one of these, like,
it looks like it.
Yeah, it looks like he's like, I'm a plumber and a trucker all at the same time. I'm hauling my load.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the Styles Wolfmobile from Teen Wolf. Like, it's the same sort of like big milk truck type thing.
Mm-hmm. And all I could do is look at poor Dr. What was her name? Dr. Armstrong?
I think so. Or wait,
yeah.
Let me check. Dr. Alexander.
Dr. Alexander was an A. Dr. Alexander. All I could do is look at poor Dr. Alexander's face during this early part of the scene. And then I also had I can't believe that the windshield wipers on this truck had a squeak to them, and they didn't bother to take the squeak out, or they sweetened it with a squeak, but there was a squeak to the windshield wipers. So the whole scene, when the wiper's coming across the truck, there's a wee-ee, wee-ee, wee-ee. It's like, really? You needed that squeaky wiper on the scene? I'm just not really sure.
I have to interrupt you and say, it's always a mark of a great piece of television when you're noticing the squeak of a windshield wiper.
You know, I wish our listeners would understand. I would so much prefer to quote incredibly incisive jokes that the writers came up with. But in lieu of them existing in these scripts, we have to mention squeaky windshield wipers. Because I always think to myself, really, couldn't you guys have written some jokes and then I wouldn't notice the wipers?
Yeah. I mean, once again, I have to take it back to Star Wars, Corey. There's a famous story that Mark Hamill talked about where they're in this trash compactor in the filming of Star Wars. Luke gets pulled under the water, his hair's all wet, and then they're like, they escape. Now they're in a hallway. They shot it on a different day. And so he says to George Lucas, he's like, hey, my hair should be wet. And then Harrison Ford takes him and he goes, kid, if they're looking at your hair, we've totally messed this thing up.
By the way, both of them are right. Both Harrison Ford is right and Mark Hamill is right. There should be consistency. There has to be continuity or else the illusion looks like it's a movie or a TV show.
Totally.
But he is right. If we're going to sit and discuss it, like we're talking about squeaky windshield wipers, they're in very big trouble.
Totally.
Because we really should be talking about, wow, that was a really nice scene between Bud and Steven when Bud gave him advice and in the truck and calmed him down and kept him going, and it was really sweet and funny. And no, there was none of that. It was just a terrible scene. And all I could think was, let's get to the freaking office already and deliver poor little Brian Bonsall onto this set.
Yeah, and so let me say this about when they're in the truck, is that at one point, Dr. Alexander is trying to calm Steven down, and she's like, you don't have to worry if there's not a doctor there because it's a natural function. Billions of people have done it. And I'm like, hey, Dr. Alexander, what was the mortality rate of women giving birth before there was modern medicine? I'm going to think a lot of women died in childbirth, that it's not the most natural thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, she does mention that, women have been giving birth for centuries before medicine existed. So it is, they would squat in a field and then go back to picking rice again,
That's actually a Bill Cosby joke.
Is it really? And women would stop the field and give birth and go right back to work again?
Yes, yes. Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. I know that. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Wow. So we cut from this horrible scene in the truck back to the office for our childbirth finale here. Alex is walking in with an enormous stack of towels and hot water. He seems to have this totally under control. He's running things smoothly. We get a really sort of kind of sweet scene, as we almost always do from Mallory. Mallory and Elise have a sweet scene that didn't bug me at all. Justine Bateman can work magic with the worst material in the world. She's a good enough actress to do it. And it was a nice.
It's true. It's totally true.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they thought it? Was there a couch in the office somewhere? Because why the gurney? It's like, really, you need to lie on a gurney to give birth? It seems like a floor would work just fine. The back seat of a cab seems to work fine for a lot of women. A sofa would work. But they had to go down to the medical show that's filmed at WKS and get a gurney for her.
Yeah, it's really weird that there's, first of all, that there's a medical show being filmed on public TV. That's got to be the most boring show ever. But yeah, I mean, because I think during the nice scene between Alex and Mom, where she's like, you need to calm down and all this stuff, I thought they were sitting on a couch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, I would only assume that it's because they want it to look a certain way when she's giving birth, that there's like, they just want her lying down. They want Steven behind her, like for the staging purposes.
Exactly.
That's the only reason.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. That's why they did it, for the shot. So they have a little get her on the gurney shtick, as you assume they would. Let's lift Elise up, put her on the gurney. And just after she gets on the gurney, Mo, Larry, and Curly arrive. Thank God Steven is there just in time to help to deliver their little boy together. This is where I wrote down, please don't make me watch this. You know, we knew what was happening, and yet, boy, I sure didn't want to see it. It appears as though her labor was incredibly short, too. Couple of pushes.
Well, I mean, don't they say that, like, you know, as you have more than one kid, it gets easier, or it takes less time, or anything? Is that true? That's
what they say. I don't know if it's true or not, but boy.
Right.
This took 3 seconds, and Andrew was out. The sweetened cry of the baby when he came out, it seemed so real. I was sort of stunned for a moment. It seemed, oh wait, no, it just sounded like a voiceover. It sounded like they just put it on the booth. It was awful.
Yeah.
It was a terrible cry. The doctor announces it's a boy, and of course Alex is incredibly relieved that it's a boy.
I mean, who could care? That's such a weird thing. I was shocked at how, like, that was like a comic point.
I did too, and like the audience was whooping and hollering like this was a great moment. Wow, it's even, 2 boys, 2 girls. Alex has a little brother. None of that matters. It could have been a boy or a girl. It didn't make any difference.
Yeah, it was like you could literally feel it being like, yeah, women suck. It's good to have a boy child. That's what it felt like.
And I just thought that they were prepping for the shows when, thinking ahead that Alex is going to try and turn Andrew into a mini-me is what we could clearly see happening. That now there'll be 3 liberals and 2 conservatives in the household, which still means that they're still the majority, thank God. The liberals.
Yeah, it's like the Supreme Court. Thank God, we finally got it back. Yeah,
exactly. The liberals still have the advantage, and then we have a little scene with the Bud and everyone's gathered around. Bud's there, Skippy's there, everybody's there, the baby's there, and there were no jokes there at all. So we just sort of end in a weird kind of moment.
It just ends on like almost like when you have a Christmas episode, and in the Christmas episode, they're like, all right, we've gathered the whole cast around the tree, they've sung the song, and then they're just like, well, I guess this episode will just end on sort of a wet fart. And then it does, and then it like usually says like, it's like season's greetings. And that's how this episode ends.
It was. It was almost as if I would have imagined season greetings from the cast of Family Ties. This was welcome to the newest cast member of Family Ties. It was just an awful, awful end to a terrible two-part episode.
Yeah, in no way did it need to be a two-part. I'm guessing it only was because it was sweeps week. You know, I'm thinking this episode came out in January at some point.
Last week of January, first week of February, if I remember correctly. I looked at it last week and realized that it was sweeps.
Yeah, so, I mean, otherwise, there was so little that they did with a two-part episode. Like, no, we have so much story to tell. It feels completely just silly and ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's it. And so, apparently, according to jumptheshark.com, the old website, this is the episode, or the plot contrivance that people say Family Ties jumped the shark, which, at the same time, let me just take a quick look. They also said that the closest second was that it never jumped the shark. The third was that Mallory's boyfriend Nick joins the cast. Jennifer's puberty is after that, and then the death of Alex's friend is after that. And, you know, like, people voted and who thought the most of those different things. But if this is where the show jumps the shark, it's so early in its run.
It is. It would be scary to think that it's downhill from here, because it hasn't been all that much uphill yet.
No, not at all. And honestly, there are good episodes in the show coming up. I know it. I've seen them.
Mm-hmm.
This third season, Corey, this third season is driving me crazy.
And we've said it before. I really do think it had a lot to do with the fact that the way it just worked out is, you know, her pregnancy and the fact that she was on bed rest and she was in and out of the episodes, and they had to write things in a funny manner. I'm sure they had a better game plan than they were able to implement. It just, they weren't able to implement it because they had, you know, different set of rules. But boy, this season just bad. And the fact that that now, I assume that we don't meet Brian Bonsall until next season.
Yeah, I feel like what happens is, they have him as a baby, and then it was the most ridiculous thing of having him age 5 years.
With no other explanation.
Between seasons. None.
Because, you know, at least, you know, like in Parks and Rec, she didn't want to work with babies, Amy Poehler, so she insisted upon that 3-year time jump between its last season and the season before. And I sort of get that. You know, no one wants to work with babies on a set. Babies aren't really fun to work with on a set. And it creates problems, especially for a multi-camera show, really creates problems in terms of shooting. Because, you know, if you got twins, what if they both have a cold? What if they're both cranky on a single camera? At the very least, you can rearrange the production schedule. But if you're shooting multi-camera, it's like, what do we do? This is shooting night. We have a studio audience out there. What do we do? So I just think that's stupid. But remember, they resisted having a baby in Mad About You for years because of this and the fact that the public thought that they jumped the shark when they had the baby. That Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt did not want to have a baby on Mad About You because they were afraid that the show was such a romantic comedy, and it was really about the two of them, that introducing a child would change the dynamic so much. So they resisted having a baby on Mad About You until the last season.
Wow, I didn't know that. I never watched that show. Do you think if I went back and watched it, I would enjoy it because I'm like an old man now?
I do, although I wonder about how timely it was, whether it was a product of its time, being the early to mid '90s when it was on, mid '90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like but I mean, because both of them are so funny and so good together. I would think that I'm really like, I'd kind of like to go back and watch that.
There was a lot of chemistry between the two of them. I thought it was. I liked both of them tremendously. I actually thought the show was sort of cute.
Mm-hmm.
If this does jump the shark, we're in trouble. But I'm hopeful that we still have a couple of good episodes ahead of us, even this season.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it'll, because I mean, you have Ellen coming. You have the My Name is Alex episode, which is amazing. There's a lot of good stuff. So, but we're here. We've made it. Like, this is a big milestone for us that now we have the full Keaton family.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the next thing is Ellen, and then after that, Nick. When Nick comes in, then we're like peak Family Ties.
My memory of the show is that I actually liked Nick in the show.
Mm-hmm. He had a nice counterbalance.
I do. I thought so too. I liked the fact that he was, if I remember correctly, they play him as sort of kind of stupid and shallow, but he's not stupid and shallow. He's actually sort of sharper than you think he is.
Mm-hmm. And he's a lot more earnest, and he's sort of like a Sylvester Stallone type. But like, he really loves Mallory. They get along really well. So now she has like a partner, and then he works as a great foil for Alex. He works as a great foil for Steven. And I like how he adds a lot to that.
Absolutely. In almost like a Mike and an Archie kind of way, where now you've got he's not quite the liberal, but he's more of a slacker than anything else. And that is sort of against everything that Steven believes in, and clearly the opposite of Alex, who is not a slacker.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's this. Welcome to the world, Andy Keaton.
That's right, Andy Keaton.
So let's wrap this up. We'll see you next week, and here are the end credits. Rate and review our show on iTunes. Please rate and review. We love you. The algorithms, more people will see us, and then they can listen. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at QTWFT for updates. Each of us, I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep, and Scott's at Follow Jones.
You can like us on Facebook. We have a page there. And we'd like to thank our host and producer, my wonderful sister, Barbara Dillon, at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and an online community supporting other creators and fans through the daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. www.fanbasepress.com. Also, Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song Without Us. Check out her website, www.perryadams.com. You know what? Let's do a quick parenthetical. Corey, did you think it was really weird the way that Meredith Baxter said W? She was like W.
Yes, it was like, where's she from? It was like W.
It was really creepy. I was like, oh, what, are you from like Oklahoma all of a sudden? She has no accent. And then all of a sudden she sounded like Bush or something.
Yes, that's what she sounded like. It was Texas.
Yeah. So also, we'd like to thank Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. And then finally, Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. Andy, the Keatons, the world, Corey, and Scott, I'll see you all next week. Bye.
Shalala.